So in this tutorial, I am going to show you how I make my gluten-free vegan pumpkin pie spice cinnamon rolls. So this is what they look like. So if you guys want to learn how to create these little cinnamon rolls right here, then just keep on watching. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're going to get some non-dairy milk. And you can use any non-dairy milk of choice. I'm using the Silk coconut milk. And you're gonna shake it up. And you need 3/4 cup of milk. Now you're gonna add 1/2 cup of water. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna stick this in the microwave for just about like 15 to 20 seconds. If you want to be technical, then you're gonna stick it in there until it is at 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And then once it gets to that level, we're going to add in our yeast, and I'll be right back. Okay, now just wiggle your finger in the middle, make sure it's kind of like lukewarm. So now this is the yeast that we're gonna be using. It is just the active dry yeast, and we're going to just pour it in there. And yeast is alive, so the reason you want to make sure it's at 110 and not any hotter is so that way you don't kill it. And then we're just going to mix it up. Okay, now you're going to let that sit for 10 minutes. And while that's sitting, we're going to start working on the dry ingredients. So to start off, we have 3 cups of flour. The flour that I'm going to be using is the Bob's Red Mill gluten-free all-purpose flour. Now if you're not gluten-free, you don't have to use this, but I am gluten-free, so I'm going to be using this. So now I've got 3 cups of flour. Now in this little mixture right here, I have 2 tablespoons granulated sugar, 1.5 teaspoons baking powder, 1.5 teaspoons baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon baking soda, and 1/2 teaspoon salt. I also added in there about 1.5 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice. So we're just gonna add this all in there. And I'm gonna grab a whisk. We are going to just mix it up. That pumpkin pie spice smells so good. Okay. Now you just wait. Okay, while our yeast is still being prepped, this is what it should look like now. It's been about 7 minutes. Zoom you in. That's about what it should look like now. The yeast should be rising to the top. So we've got a couple more minutes on that. So now I'm just gonna show you the next ingredients I'm gonna be using and what we're gonna do with them. So we set our dry mixture to the side. Now I'm going to be grabbing some vegan butter. We need 4 tablespoons. This is the Earth Balance vegan butter. So we're gonna get 4 tablespoons of that, and we're gonna melt it. Then we're gonna take 1 tablespoon of some apple cider vinegar. And if you don't wanna use apple cider vinegar, you can also use lemon juice. Now, 2 things. So I'm going to be taking 2 tablespoons of some ground chia seeds. And you also, so that's 1 ingredient. And then the next ingredient is you can either use 2 tablespoons of ground psyllium husk, or you can just add extra chia seeds. If you don't have chia seeds, you can also use ground flaxseed meal. I'm going to go ahead and use 4 tablespoons of the ground chia seeds because I don't have the psyllium husk, or flaxseed meal, and these are going to be in replacement of the eggs because chia seeds and water substitute eggs. So I'm going to put that all in a little cup and then we'll put it in our yeast. Okay, now I've got my melted butter in here and I've got my chia seeds in here. We're gonna just add it all in there. Now you just need to mix it up. You want to make sure all of the chia seeds get wet. Now we're going to let this hang out to the side for a little bit to thicken. Okay, so I grabbed one of the little cookie sheets. This is really helpful when you are rolling out dough because it doesn't move everywhere. So we're gonna go back in with our dry mix. I'm gonna add a little bit more of the pumpkin pie spice just to make sure it has the taste that I want it to have. Because last time when I made these, the chia seed, I could taste it a little bit more than I wanted to. So let's go ahead and say 2 tablespoons. 2 tablespoons of pumpkin pie spice. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we are going to make like a hole in the middle. Now we're gonna pour in our chia seed and everything mixture. All right, now we're just gonna start mixing. It starts to get a little bit too hard to mix and you're just gonna need to go in with your hands. I like to kind of push it up against the side to make sure that it's all getting mixed in. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab some parchment paper. So the parchment paper is gonna be really helpful when we're trying to roll this. So I'm going to lay down just a little bit of flour. Just so that way we don't stick everywhere. We are going to throw this on here now. And if it is way too sticky for you, just add some more flour. Because as you can see, it's totally sticking to this. So we need more flour. Okay. I think that's pretty darn good. So now I'm just going to push it down and we're gonna start rolling. So when you're rolling, you wanna try to make it into a rectangle. So we're gonna go out, backwards, backwards. And you wanna make it about 1/3 inch of thickness. So you don't want it to be too thin, but you also don't want it to be too thick. Okay, so now we're gonna work on the filling. So I'm just gonna show you what we're gonna be using. So since we're making pumpkin spice, I'm going to be taking maybe about, I'm not quite sure yet, I think maybe 1/4 cup of this pumpkin. And then we are going to go in with 2 tablespoons of the vegan butter melted. And then in this little mixture, I have 3/4 cup brown sugar, 1/4 cup granulated sugar, 2 teaspoons cinnamon, a pinch of salt, and also about 2 Well, about a half a tablespoon of the pumpkin spice. I'm gonna get a bowl, I'm gonna melt my butter, I'm gonna mix this up, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so here's what that mixture looks like. It's a little bit runny, but that's okay. I am gonna add a little bit more brown sugar. Just mix that up. Okay, so now I'm going to literally just pour this on top. And we're just gonna spin it around. Oops. And any balls that are in here, just go ahead and pinch up. Don't be too worried about trying to get this perfect because we are gonna cut off the edges to make this even, so. Okay. So there's that. I'm gonna grab a little bit more brown sugar and just kind of dust it right on top. If you don't wanna add any more brown sugar, you totally don't have to, but it's really all personal preference. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're going to cut the edges to make this into a rectangle. And with the edges, I do end up rolling them up anyways, just because who wants to waste this stuff? See, look at that, one little cinnamon roll. I'll just put those in this little cup. So here's a pan. You can use any size pan. I like to use one that has the edges. I'm just gonna spray some oil on it. Okay, now the fun part. We're gonna start folding. And just remember, it literally does not have to be perfect. Like, my rolls never come out perfect. They're kind of sticky this time, so I might have added should have added a little bit more flour. And just keep rolling. And I just peel it off. Okay, now we're gonna cut them. So I'm just gonna put some flour on here, whatever's extra. And I'm gonna set this. We're gonna put them cut side up. They're not the prettiest, but like I said, that's okay. Practice makes perfect. And then what I do is I'll just kind of scrunch them up into that little pretty round cinnamon roll. It is a little bit harder when you make them the pumpkin way because of the wetness of that pumpkin that you're putting in them. It kind of makes it harder for the dough to stay together. But hey, who cares if they come out tasting good, right? Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna cover this and we're gonna let it sit for 1 hour. You can let it sit for longer, say you wanna make these in the morning, and then you'll just throw them in the oven later on at night. If you're gonna let them sit in the fridge for longer than an hour, then you're going to wanna let them sit for like outside to like kind of thaw, I guess, for a little bit, like maybe like 10-15 minutes. But yeah, you don't need to put these in the fridge unless you know you're gonna be leaving them out for longer than an hour. So I'm just gonna cover them with some foil. You can use plastic wrap. I'm gonna use foil and I'm gonna leave them on the counter for an hour and then we'll be back to cook them. Here. Okay, so this is what they should look like after about an hour of resting. And now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna stick them in the oven at 375 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes. Okay, so while I'm gonna leave them in the oven for about a couple more minutes just until we're done, and then we'll pull them out and then pour all this on there. So for the icing, we're going to go in with 2 cups of powdered sugar. And I'm just using the Great Value powdered sugar. Doesn't really matter. So 2 cups of powdered sugar. I've got a 1/3 cup here. We're gonna do 3 of these. All right, 2 cups powdered sugar, good. Now we're going to go in with 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and I'm just taking the Baker's imitation vanilla. So 1 teaspoon of that. And I'm gonna be bad and just pour it over because I like vanilla. It says you can use 1 tablespoon of coconut oil. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use 1 tablespoon of coconut milk, just the same coconut milk we used earlier. Now we need 1 tablespoon of hot water. And pour that in. Now I'm just gonna use my whisk and whisk this all together. You want it to be kind of thick, but not too thick. Like this is a little bit too thick, so I'm gonna add some more coconut milk. And now I'm gonna add a little bit of some pumpkin pie spice. Okay, now that that's sitting in there, I'm gonna grab the cinnamon rolls. Okay, here is the finished cinnamon rolls. You'll know they're done when they're harder on the outside. So now what we're gonna do, I'm gonna mix this up a little bit. I'm just gonna take that cup and literally we're gonna just drizzle this all across them. And it's best to do this right after you take them out of the oven so this can melt right on top. Okay, so this is the finished look. Hope you guys enjoyed this little food tutorial and hope you think it tastes good. I will link the recipe down below, so thank you guys for watching.